So good afternoon, welcome. Thank you for coming out on Easter weekend and to hear Bhante Saranapala speak as part of this series of 4 talks entitled The End of Suffering. This particular talk is on dependent origination, the causal chains that create bondage and suffering. I don't claim to be a big expert on the Buddha's teachings. I've done quite a bit of meditation practice and some study. But I've always, to the extent that I've ever been associated with any teachers who are instructing in meditation and the theory of, Buddhist psychology and so on, this teaching that he's giving today is considered like a critical linchpin teaching of the whole instruction of the Buddha of how to bring about the end of suffering. So we've got sheets that I'm going to pass out right now, and you can take one because it has the links. I'm going to actually separate it in half, and then put half over there. So it has actually the links written down of the causal chain that creates suffering, and then the undoing of suffering. So it'll require a certain amount of focus, a certain amount of understanding, but I'm sure Bhante will guide us graciously through it. And on that note, first of all, for those who haven't been here before, welcome to Midtown Yoga, and welcome also to meeting Bhante Saranapala, who I feel very grateful has been willing to come up here to give these talks. And he's a resident at a temple, the West End Meditation Center, I think it's called, in Mississauga. He's born in Bangladesh and was trained in Sri Lanka, and then was posted in Toronto by his religious superior, his teacher. And then in the course of that got his PhD in comparative religion from the University of Toronto, and is now the Buddhist chaplain at the University of Toronto, and also does extensive amounts of community activities to help people through meditation and the teachings of mindfulness and so on. For example, about a month ago he was down in Chicago training the Chicago Police Force, portion of the Chicago Police Force. I believe he's done that with the Toronto Police Force as well. And I'm hoping that he's going to go to the White House for Donald Trump, maybe. Mindfulness training, loving kindness meditation, and so on. Lots of loving kindness meditation. And on that note, please welcome Bhante Saranapala.
Welcome. Thank you for coming to the talk. First, I'm going to do a little chanting, and I'm going to start the talk. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Okay, so thank you all for coming to this talk today, despite the long weekend, Easter weekend. You thought of coming this afternoon to spend 2 hours with me. Yeah? We can say this is the mindfulness hour. So I'm very grateful to David for inviting me to this yoga studio and for organizing some public talks for me based on one theme of the end of suffering. We we already had 2 sessions. I think they went well, and people really appreciated those words of wisdom. And I said, David has kind of new ideas, all the new ideas, but those are based on the deep teachings of the Buddha. As the first talk was on the end of suffering, and the second talk was on the 4 foundations of mindfulness. And today, I was asked to talk about the dependent origination, known in Buddha's teachings as paticca samuppada. So this is very deep, but you know, when Buddha talked about the dependent origination, his personal attendant, Venerable Ananda, said, Lord, although you say this is so deep, but to me, it doesn't sound deep. It seems a piece of cake for me. But the Buddha said, Ananda, don't say that. It's not a piece of cake. It's not simple, as you say. But it's very deep, very deep. Now, why is it so deep? Now, I think all of you got the handout. Maybe today, instead of just me talking about all this, we can engage in a conversation, in a dialogue. Now, the whole philosophy of the Buddha, the doctrine, the teachings of the Buddha, is based on the human problem, the problem of suffering. Buddha was concerned about that, the human suffering. When we talk about the human suffering, it's not just my suffering or your suffering. Although he was born in India or Nepal in the 6th century BCE, the suffering that he talked about is not the Indian or 6th century suffering, but we all are human beings, although we are living in the 21st century with all the high-tech technology, everything, all the accommodations and facilities, and I think we are still complaining about our life. We are still suffering in certain way. Now, if you ask the teen boys and girls, and of course first they will say, no, they are not suffering. But when you go into their level, talk about their day-to-day experiences, then they say, oh yeah, it's so stressful. And then they are anxious, they suffer from anxieties and depression, stress, and kind of physical pain, and of course the emotional pain. So the emotional suffering is there. Everybody is going through this emotional suffering. Now the Buddha understood this, that my whole mission as a Buddha is to talk about this problem of suffering, and then my whole mission is to talk about the end of this suffering, to talk about the freedom from this suffering. So now, what can we do about this? Now, how does suffering comes into being? And how do we bring that to an end? This is what we all have to understand. Now, the dependent origination some water. I think this room is hot yoga, no?
Yes. Like Sri Lanka.
Yeah. I feel like it's 40 degrees now. Now, first, Buddha, when he became enlightened, and then he was reflecting on this paticca samuppada, different origination, back and forth, back and forth. And then he realized, in fact, I am completely free now. I am free. I have become awakened, enlightened. I'm not suffering anymore. I have removed all seeds of suffering from my mind. Now, how did he do this? Now, first he started practicing meditation. Now, of course, people are very interested in meditation everywhere. Even 2 weeks ago, I was in Las Vegas. I did not go there to do gambling or anything like that. I go there time to time, by the way. And people are very interested in meditation. And they are very interested in Buddhism too, the Buddhist teachings. Now, why is that? Why people are showing such a great interest in Buddhism? I am very positive, even today, almost all of you came. Either you had a great interest in Buddhism, or you thought, oh my goodness, the urban Buddhist monk is coming to our town. Let's go and see him. Let's see what he has to say. So this is, about Buddhism. So now why is that? But the fundamental principle of Buddhism is the cause and effect. Something happens in our life because of particular causes and conditions. For something to happen in life, all causes and conditions have to be present. This is what people are realizing now. With the advancement of the science, modern science, neuroscience, psychology, and people are showing a great interest in Buddhism because this is what Buddha talked about. Now, Buddha made it very clear. In Pali, we say, Asmin sati idam hoti. If a condition, right condition is present, this thing will happen. Asmin asati idam nahoti. If there is no right causal condition, and this thing will not happen. Right? So this is what we all have to understand. Like, let's say it's warm now, even outside. Why? Because it's spring, and we are about to welcome the summer. Right? So the cold disappeared. There's no more snow. So, in the same way, all the causes and conditions have to be present. Now, yesterday, we monks were, driving by a road. We saw the green, the grasses. Yeah? And we also saw how trees were about to blossom. So then we look at these trees, look at these grasses. Aren't they green? Aren't they nice? And last week we did not see them, but this week we see them. And then one man said, this is the hetu phala, cause and effect. See, there's enough warmth, heat. As a result of this, all trees are coming back to life. The grass are becoming green. So now if you look around in the countryside, in your backyard, and you see all this. So everything is functioning with all the necessary causes and conditions. Everything based on necessary causes and conditions. Of course, sometimes people think that the world and everything, the environment, everything is governed by a superior entity. You may call them gods or devils or something like that. They think that we are governed, the world is governed by these beings. But the Buddha did not see it that way. Buddha denied the fact that there is no such an entity that governs everything. He said, what I know from my own experiences, my own practice, things are happening due to the necessary causes and conditions. So he denied that concept. Then he explained how things happen in our life. Right? So then he got this wisdom through the practice of meditation. Without meditation, there is no wisdom. We might have knowledge. Having knowledge is one thing, having wisdom is another. So the wisdom is an experiential knowledge. So there's a saying called Yogave Jayati Bhuri. The Bhuri means wisdom, insight. There is another word for that. It's called Panya, or in Sanskrit it's called Prajna. Wisdom, insight. Jayati comes, arises. Comes from what? Yoga. Yoga. Now, not this particular yoga. This is also part of it. But real meaning of yoga is, going meditation, going inwards, right? So this also helps you. I know those who do yoga. Although today in the 21st century, people do yoga for physical exercise, but the yoga is meditation. So the wisdom comes from meditation. So then Buddha practiced meditation for many months. And then he developed his mind, and then he got to experience some deeper levels, states of the mind called the jhana. Have you heard about jhana? In Sanskrit it's called dhyana. Jhana is also a meditation, and jhana comes from when you bring your mind to and a state of stability and clarity. When your mind becomes free from distractions, hindrances, obstacles, then you are at the level of jhana. So jhana is a state of a level of mental purity. This is what you have to understand. So there are different levels of mental purity. There's a first level of mental purity, second level of mental purity, third level of mental purity, fourth level of mental purity, and from there, then Buddha went further deeper. Those are known as, you can say, with the base of space, and the base of nothingness, base of the infinity, and then the base of neither perception or no sensation. Neither perception nor perception is also sensation. After this, the Buddha went to another level of experience, the mental purity. It is called the Sanya Vedayita Nirodha, the cessation of the feelings and sensations. Okay? And at this point, what he did was, he brought the mind to a complete stop. The mind is an activity. He brought this activity, the thing called the activity, the mind, to a complete halt. Now, when you bring your mind to a complete halt, are you aware of anything? Are you conscious of anything? Do you know what is happening? Nothing. You are not aware of anything. Because mind has gone into a complete stop. There is no sensation, no feeling, no perception, nothing. And then, well, that is also a blissful state. It is also a major level of mental purity. And then from here, he came back. He started coming back. From there, he realized that all these are happening due to, the sensations and feelings. Sensations and feelings. Now, how do we understand the sensations of feelings? Now, let's say there are a lot of objects, even in this room. When you look outside, you see there are a lot of objects. When the light falls onto the objects, now what do we see? Do we see the object or do we see the light? I'm asking a question from you. Light. We just see the light, not the object. But to the majority of the people, they think they're seeing the objects. We don't see the objects. We see only the lights. And then we identify. We think, when we see the light, through that, then we see the object, and then, we say, oh, this is a woman, this is a man, oh, this is a Buddhist monk, oh, this is a cup, oh, there's a camera, oh, there's a flower. And then we just see in the light, and then we also identify them. The feelings comes from feelings, that is like the colors. Along with these sensations and the feelings that come, now we say, oh, this is a yellow color. This is a red color. This is a red flower, yellow flower. Oh, this is a black cup. Oh, this is the white glass. Right? So we identify them as this and that. And then what happens? Then they are, with this identification of the objects, and then we give them a name. We give them a name. So that's why we call this is a flower, this is a statue, or that's a chair, or that's the table, or this is a man, this is a woman, and so on and so forth. So it's called the Nama Rupa. You have the object, and then you give a name with this. So then what happens? Now in the first, all these are happening quickly. From the state of the complete whole of the mind, then when you come back, then you with the feelings and sensations, then you mentally construct something. That is what we call the dependent on activities, arises the rebirth consciousness, and then there comes the sankhara. Sankhara is the activities are the mental constructions. Like you have previously seen something, and based on that, let's say even drawing a picture, what you're doing is you just put in the colors, right? And after putting the colors, you identify the object as, oh, this is such a thing.
So, may I ask a question? So,
Yeah.
for example, the first link here,
Yeah.
dependent on ignorance, like with the arising of ignorance, in the presence of ignorance, then arise activities.
Yeah.
This is, I'm reading it correctly, moral and immoral, or sankhara, and then it creates sankhara, this mental impression. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, how would you define ignorance in this context?
In this context, it's like, like this is what we see, the ignorance comes from, like, there are two things going on. Okay? This is about the existence. Now, according to the existential philosophers, they think, we exist, right? We exist. But then according to Buddha's teaching, he says, that's the wrong conception. we exist is a wrong conception. In reality, we don't exist. Now he says, we exist is because of the emotions. Emotions want us to see like this exists, that exists. Anger exists, jealousy exists, so such a thing exists. But the thinking part says, although emotions think this exists, but the thinking part says, no, it doesn't exist. So it is connected to that emotion part. Emotion part wants to think it's existing. And then you realize that when you purify the mind, this is why we need to practice meditation to purify the mind. And when you go to the mental purity, level of mental purity, you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, then you understand there is nothing existing, and things are existing due to a particular cause and condition. So not knowing this is ignorance. Like, that's the emotion part. When emotion thinks that this exists, it is ignorance.
Could it also be defined as a misperception of reality, ignorance?
Yeah, you could say that too. Yeah. So then, that's why Buddhism highly talks about meditation. That's why people have to meditate. Now, it's like, if something is existing in your life, if you think you're upset, you're angry, you have to understand that anger, that upset is based on a particular cause and condition. Now, so who creates that is the emotion, that ignorant part. They think, so and so did this to me, so and so said this to me, and so I am upset about it, I'm angry about it. But the thinking part says, even the person who yelled at me doesn't really exist. And so that's why we call, this is the major paradigm shift. This is a major paradigm shift. We have to shift our attention to the thinking brain, not the emotional brain. Emotional mind wants, so-and-so exists, and he or she did this to me, and therefore I exist because I'm suffering from it. Right? That's why I'm upset. But then, if your thinking brain or thinking mind says, that's a delusion that he or she exists, or she or did this, she did that, or I am upset, I'm angry, if I think I'm existing that way, and that is the real avidya, the ignorance. So now, we mentally construct all this. So we would even say, it's also like how this thing happens. I think maybe we can simplify this. Let's say I see you, right? In fact, I don't see you in reality. As we made it very clear, all we see is the light. The light is nothing else but the waves or the frequencies, right? So the frequencies of light, when fall onto a particular object, and then I say, I have constructed an image of you, like this is David, right? And then the moment I identify frequencies of light, when fall onto a particular object, and then I say, I have constructed an image of you, like this is David, right? And then the moment I identify you as David, with all the sensations and all the things, then what happens? Then the Vedana, when my eyes see you, when the light falls onto you as an object, right? And there's a contact between the eyes and the object. And then there comes like, this is the guy that yelled at me the other day. Right? Then what happens? That there's a feeling, unpleasant feeling in me, right? I'm very upset. I'm angry. And then all these, so this is the feelings with the, because that's what happens with us, even these 6 spheres of sense. Dependent on these 6 spheres of sense arises contact. So that is like, let's say we see the object through the eye, and we hear the sound through the ear, we smell something through the nose, we taste something the tongue, we get some sensations, feelings through the body, right? So that we create the whole world in it, right? So these 6 senses are the world, the Buddha said. Beyond this, there's nothing else. So then when there is such a thing, then maybe if you, even sometimes how we say to certain people, you know what, you're like David, you're so nice. David is also nice, right? You're kind, he's also nice. How we compare? Something like that. So then, all this is like pleasant. Pleasant feelings. And there are, when we talk about the feelings, there are pleasant feelings, unpleasant feelings, neutral feelings. And along with all this, there comes the tanha. Tanha, that is the craving, desire. To make it very simple for people to understand, craving, desire, nothing else but the emotional reaction to the environment. What you're seeing, what you're hearing, what you're smelling, what you're tasting, what you're touching, right? And then, with this emotional reaction, then that's the necessary condition for something else. What is that? It is grasping, clinging. Clinging, grasping is nothing else but the personalization. Now you're personalizing all the emotional reactions, like I, me, myself. So then, with this personalization, with the grasping and clinging, there comes this thing called the upadana. Upadana, clinging. From the clinging comes the bhava. Bhava means the existence. Now the notion of self comes into being.
In the sense of, dependent on feeling arises craving. So I experience something pleasant, I crave, I want to experience it again or more of it,
Yeah.
or longer. But then is also included in this, and with the experience of craving arises grasping, but it can be craving for or against, correct? Like I can crave to have this person's company or to avoid this person's company. So it can be either negative or positive craving.
Either positive or negative.
Or negative or positive grasping. Either a grasp to keep them away or a grasp to hold on to them.
Yeah. So there's also there are several types of cravings. It's called the kama upadana. Kama means the sensual desire. That means what you like. Like senses. Whatever feelings you get through the senses, like sensual desire, you grasp it. And then bhava upadana. That means, if you like it, you want it to exist for you. You cling to it. And also if you don't like it, then you deny it, you refuse it. You don't want it to exist for you. Right? So, for example, if you see somebody, if you like that person, you want that person to exist for you. So that means you have already clung to that person. And if you don't like that person, and you don't want to see that person anymore, you don't want that person to exist for you, right? So that is negative. So you reject it. So that is also a form of clinging. So in another place, when Buddha talked about the cause of suffering, he realized it's the tanha. Tanha, the desire, craving. Now there are 3 types of tanha, the cravings. Kama tanha, desire for sensual pleasure, craving for sensual pleasure. Bhava tanha, desire and craving for the existence. That means, yes, positive, we want more.
Or I just want to live.
Yeah. And the vibhava tanha, I want to live. I don't want it. That's the vibhava tanha. Or you don't want the desire for non-existence. That is what is called. Right? So, is this desire is coming from, and from this desire there comes this clinging. Now you are hanging on to. You're personalizing. Then you are assuming a self. So when this, it is actually an imaginary self in an imaginary world. You are imagining there is such a self, such a thing, entity called I, me, myself. But then, from this grasping, this personalization, there comes the existence, the birth. The birth. Now, along with this birth, from the birth comes what? Let's say, now this is the time and a space. This I, the self, occupies in the time and space. So now, we are talking about the time. Now there's the past. In the past, what happened? Let's say the birth is the past. And what is the future of this? What is the future?
Once born, death.
Death. Right? The death. The birth is the past, future is the death. And then, in between birth and death, what is that? What is that life? What is that suffering? What comes from what? In between birth and death, there are two more. Huh? Yeah, but from birth comes what? Now what?
Old age, disease, death.
Old age, aging, right? And then the sickness. And then with all this, does anyone want to get old? Does anyone want to get sick? Does anyone want to die? No. But when these things happen, there comes what? The whole mass of suffering.
Which Buddha also wouldn't exclude joy, great pleasure, all the rest of it, but that has a time frame on it. It goes the other direction as well.
Yeah. So it's like, of course, now the whole
Spectrum of existence.
Yeah. The purpose of this is to explain to the people how the whole mass of suffering comes into being, or how all problems come into being in our life. Now, of course, we are complaining about our life. Is that I'm suffering from something. We are suffering from something. Let's see this problem. We are complaining about the problem because we have already come to the problem, assuming this is my problem. This is my pain. Yeah.
At some readings I've done, they've said that this distance of yourself from Buddhism of your emotions, you just observe it
Yeah.
and you let it go.
Yeah.
And you don't say that they don't exist, like what you said, anger or frustration, but you have to just look at it because it's not you, it's just that.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't exist, and then you wash and let it go.
Ah, so
And so this observing part, how do you just, what is observing? I don't know.
Oh, what is observing? Well, this is the thing. It is like you're not. That's why I think were you here last month?
No, I'm sorry.
Ah.
I didn't make it. Maybe you answered that question already.
Actually, we did talk about this in detail. This is what we call the mindfulness practice. 4 foundations of mindfulness practice. The body, feeling, the emotion, and the mental objects. How we can observe all these 4 together at the simultaneous, together. So now, to observe this, you need to practice meditation. It doesn't happen in one day. You need to keep practicing it every day. When you keep practicing, then you realize, first, that's why at the beginning I said of this talk, how Buddha started practicing meditation, and then how he experienced a level of mental purity. A mental purity in the sense of, like mind is free from restlessness, agitation, what blocks the mind to see the things as they really are. There are five things, 5 hindrances. We call them hindrances because these things hinder your mind. They don't let your mind see. These 5 things, they just agitate the mind. So you need to make your mind free from these 5 hindrances. These are known as, in fact, this is what we call the emotional thing. These are emotions. Sensual desire, anger or aversion, sleep and lethargy, restlessness and agitation, worries, and doubt. when you make your mind free from these 5 emotions, and when your mind is stable and clear, there you go to this jhana experience. Okay? Then you go to second level of mental purity. Then you go deeper and deeper. There you begin to see that, whatever it is, it could be something that's annoying you, or it could be something that makes you liking something, hang on to these things, then you realize, all these are happening due to the necessary causes and conditions, right? And then you also begin to see all these causes and conditions are not permanent. They just come and go, come and go, come and go. This is another the very reason why Buddha said, Sabban anicca. Everything is impermanent. Everything changes. Everything changes. The assumption of the imaginary self, imaginary world, comes into being when you fail to see this. When you see that, or when you say everything exists, or this thing exists, that thing exists, it is a work of this emotional mind. And because this emotional mind failed to see the impermanent nature of things, right? Impermanent nature of the things. So it is the thinking mind that makes you see that, now my mind is, thinking mind is calm, is stable. All there is just things are happening based on necessary causes and conditions. Everything. Let's say if you're, to make it very simple for you, sometimes I'm pretty sure when you're alone, you smile, you laugh. Why? Because at that moment, you're assuming something that had already passed, right? Or that made you laugh and smile and happy, So you're assuming a kind of permanent thing there. But then, if you can understand this impermanent nature, because it is also in meditation, we call it, there are levels of wisdom. There are 9 levels of wisdom. The very first level of wisdom is called the wisdom of seeing the arising and passing. Arising and passing. Now what do you can observe this right here within yourself. Let's say I'm sweating at this moment. Why? David made it hot. Right? Now if I go out, I'm cold, my sweat is gone. Right? So then, if we can see this, arising and passing of things, and the cause and condition of things, and the hetu phala, and then there's nothing to hang on to, there's nothing to worry about, and then you can easily let go. So then, in the second, there is another one, the Buddha also talks about the cessation of the suffering. That is the when this particular cause of condition disappears, that thing disappears.
Bhante, can I endeavor to summarize the first piece for my own sake, and perhaps it'll add clarification for others as well?
Yeah.
So, beginning with the first, depending on ignorance, then arises activity. So, my misperceiving of reality, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Because an enlightened person is going to act as well. Like Buddha did many actions through the course of his life, but that wasn't a cause for his suffering, because he already. But we could say that because I'm acting without seeing clearly the way things are, for example, I have identification with myself as a permanent entity, and then I do various actions. They may be good actions or bad actions, but out of having this identity and out of having this perception of the world that is not clear, then inevitably I act, I do various things, which creates sankhara, which is another, many people may not have heard that word, but translation I understand as kind of mental impression.
Yeah, mental impression,
so,
and then mentally you construct.
Yeah, mental construct, so people can understand that as like, these things happen to you when you're a child, and then through the course of your adolescence, things keep happening, and they create mental impressions. In the world of psychology, you could say it's your unconscious or whatever. So based on my activities, I experience things, I have impressions come into my mind. Then with these impressions create my consciousness. I mean, a Buddha has consciousness too, but it says, based on these impressions arises consciousness, but this is my ego consciousness or separate consciousness, conditioned consciousness. So I start seeing the world in this way because in the past, people were telling me that, it was because of me that therefore they were sweating and suffering, and then, I just give me, or whatever, my mother said this about me, and therefore I always think that when people, so there's these kinds of, based on my impressions, I perceive reality, and then dependent on consciousness that has been created through all these impressions and experience, then arises the perception of mind and matter, of my mental consciousness, or of how I see the world and plants and things in the world. And then, based on mind and matter, there can be the 6 sense spheres, like I can see, because these are physical processes, I can see, hear, taste, and so on. Based on this, then I have contact with, like, a person, a plant, a thing. And based on the contact, it creates sensation. I see someone I like, I see someone I don't like, or something I like, a sound I love or I don't like, and then that creates the feeling, positive or negative or neutral. And then based on the feeling, I have craving, like I don't like this, I do like this. And then based on craving, I cling to this, either to push it away or to keep it. And then based on my clinging, then again I act, I want more of that, I have to go here and get that some more ice cream like that, or whatever it is. And then, so these are my actions, and then based on my actions, I create the fuel that keeps me moving through life in terms of, but it's in rebirth consciousness, it's also not only rebirth in next life, but it's the rebirth into the next moment, it's conditioned consciousness as well. It's not just next life. And so I keep, there are successive moments of me, of this conditioned consciousness arising that is still ignorant. And then based on that, there's the possibility of birth in the next moment or in the next life. As soon as there's birth, for example, physical birth, then there's all these others, decay, suffering, disease, and so on.
That's the whole summary of this.
Okay.
So what we have to do is to remove all sufferings, to stop all the sufferings. So what we have to understand is like to remove this ignorance. Now this ignorance is nothing else but the emotional mind that makes us to think, this exists, that exists, right? This and that, everything. So now, if we can develop the thinking mind, rational thinking is what is here, the opposite of ignorance is called the wisdom, right? Wisdom. Now, with that wisdom, Wisdom means the seeing things as they really are. Now when you see, this is what's causing this. This is what's causing that. Now, after seeing this, if you can remove those causes or conditions, then the other thing begins to disappear.
The wheel goes the opposite
That's
direction.
right. So this is exactly what Buddha did during his meditation practice. So that's why all meditation masters emphasize on meditation. You don't have to really, I know today maybe people are practicing meditation just to get a temporary experience of the relief from their daily problems like stress and tension, depression, anxiety, this and that. But that is, byproduct of the meditation practice. When you meditate, and of course it's going to help you calm your mind, you're going to be free from daily stress and tension, but it doesn't mean you're completely free. So what you have to do is to keep practicing. That's why there is another form of meditation practice called vipassana bhavana, vipassana meditation. That's why we encourage people to meditate longer, to go to 10 days retreat. Like, when you go for a 10 days retreat, then you realize many things. Of course, at the beginning, you're going to struggle. You struggle a lot. Then you're going to suffer from meditation. At the beginning, people suffer big. And even some people can't handle it anymore. They stop and come back. They say that's too much. But you need to have patience. You need to be very patient with yourself. And then, as you keep, just as in retreats, they emphasize, even I always emphasize people just to watch the breath. All you have to do, just watch the breath and see, along with ingoing breath, observe the sensations coming into being. Along with the outgoing breath, watch the sensations coming into being. Right? And just, and also when a thought pops up in the mind, see how this thought is creating a lot of sensations, or particular emotion. When you're angry, how this anger is creating a lot of sensation, physically, mentally, right? And observe all this. When you keep observing all this, then there comes a moment you get this, now I get it. I understand it.
If there is no self, who or what observes? Who or what sees the impermanence? Who suffers?
Who suffers, no?
There is nothing there.
There's nothing
so what
there.
suffers?
What is permanent?
What is permanent?
Everything we see, I think it's the same question.
Yeah.
Everything we see in a sense is impermanent. What is it that's permanent?
There is nothing permanent. Permanent thing comes with the assumption of the self. There's no observer, but observation is. There is no sufferer, but the suffering is.
That's difficult.
Yeah. So that's difficult. Yeah. It's like, that's why that's why you need to, it's like during this summer, okay? I'm pretty sure in this region, Kitchener Waterloo, there are some beautiful rivers. No? Just sit by the river and observe the water. Observe the water. You know, in the 6th century BCE, there was a philosopher, Greek philosopher by the name Heraclitus, who said, a man cannot step into the same river twice. The man thinks that he is stepping into the same river. He does that with the assumption of I am. But in reality, you cannot step into the same river twice. Why? It's not the same water. It's gone. So, in the same way, that's why the assumption of self, how it comes into being, this is called the upadana, grasping. The grasping comes from this emotional reaction to the environment. Right? And this self is coming into being from this clinging. But once you let go clinging, it is a way of letting go of the self. When you let go of the self, then there is no birth of sickness, aging, death, suffering, stress, anxiety, depression, and all this. Now, the whole mass of suffering has come into being because of this imaginary self. But in reality, is there an I? To understand this, we have to have a good understanding about the psychology. Now, if you are interested in the neuroscience, neuroscientists are explaining now this beautifully. They now understand where this feeling called the self, image of self, is coming from. It is the work of this part of the brain called the Velcro brain. Have you heard about Velcro brain? No. Velcro brain is the very primitive brain, undeveloped, untrained, uninstructed brain, very primitive. This assumption of self is coming from that brain, because it is that Velcro brain is also, you can understand that as the emotional brain. The emotional brain that makes you assume things. Like, I am this, I am that. I am. But the thinking brain, it is known also in the neuroscience, the Teflon brain. The Teflon brain says, my friend, although you assume this self, I know there's no self. There's no such a person called I. Right? And I tell you, the Teflon brain is giving a warning to the Velcro brain. My friend, I tell you now, if you assume such a self, you're going to suffer. You're going to be in pain. So, but the emotional brain, again, Velcro brain thinks or disregards his warning. You say whatever, but I'm going to assume that. And because of that, that today people are suffering from everything.
Bhante, I just wanted to make a quick point because it is Easter weekend, so some people may have dinners, etc.
Oh yeah.
We're at 3:20 now. In the schedule that I had published, it spoke of the talk being an hour, and then we have meditation and question and answer. I think we have a format that's happening right now of integrated talk with question and answer.
Yeah.
So maybe we can do this for about another 20 minutes so people can clarify as we go along. And then we can spend the last 20 minutes before doing the meditation. And hopefully you'll have a chance to review the cessation of suffering, that reverse link before we finish.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like what we're saying is it's the attachment to the emotions that is kind of rooting us in this Velcro brain, which is less than ideal. It's kind of manipulating our perception of things.
Yeah.
My question is, how does our most purest form of emotion in terms of, say, love or bliss, how does that integrate, and how isn't it if this is the case that we're making, how isn't it almost a fallacy or a trap into the Velcro brain?
So the love and compassion, these are selfless, you can say the wholesome emotions, which these emotions are not based on particular cause and condition, right? That's why we call them unconditional love, right? Unconditional love. The conditional love is based on the self, the self. So that's why they say, you're Canadian. So I'm also Canadian. So you feel it doing it. Or you're Catholic. I'm also Catholic. So okay, welcome. Then we are fine. This is conditional. But now, what about who is not Canadian? Who is not Catholic? Then you're in trouble. Then you're about to, even harm others. Unconditional love, unconditional compassion embraces everyone. Because it's not based on this self. You consider everyone like me. So that's why we wish happiness to everyone. We are not just concerned about my own well-being. I'm concerned about well-being of every sentient being.
One quick follow-up is, would artistic expression fall into the same kind of unconditional category?
Artistic
Expression? Because that's something that you can get attached to. But it can be selfless as well.
Yeah, it could be selfless if you take that way, right? Yeah. Sometimes, the artistic expression could be selfish too. If you have to understand what is the real mental condition of that artist who is doing it, right?
Yes. Just going back 5 or 10 minutes, you said the self is not real or not permanent. And you're talking about the self as it pertains to the human experience, but is there not a self that goes outside of that? The Sanskrit word is Atman, or
Yeah.
something called soul. Is that permanent, or is that?
Actually, this self is another notion, the concept. Now, real notion of self, that's why in the Vedic tradition, they did talk about a concept called self, Atman, right? Now, although they talked about an Atman, the self, they did not define what really Atman is. Maybe they go, this is the Atman, coming from this purest, self called Brahman, right? And it's everlasting. What is this self? This, let's say you, me. This is a self coming from so and so. It's everlasting, and once you die, this Atman will go back to its own origin. That's the only explanation given for this self. Now Buddha comes into the scene. He says, wait a minute. You're talking about an eternal self, Atman. But what you call the Atman is not an Atman to my knowledge. You call this the Atman. But to my understanding, this one that you call the Atman is a combination of 5 psychophysical entities. 5 psychophysical entities. Physical body, feeling, perception, mental formation, and consciousness. But to my experience and understanding, each physical mental entity is changing constantly. Your feelings are changing, your perception about the world and the things are changing, your body is definitely changing. Whatever mentally you construct, that also changes. Your consciousness definitely changes every second, every moment. So, and you're calling this is the eternal self. But to my experience, my understanding, there is no such an eternal thing. All there is just a constant change. But when these are separately changing entities that we see. But when you put them together, he gave a very powerful example. Now let's say we call the self, let's say the car, the car. We call it a car when you put different things together, assemble it. When you put the 4 wheels and the steering wheel, body, engine, seat together, when you assemble them together, put them together, then you call it a car. Now, you separate. You put the engine in this place, the steering wheel to another place, the car seat to another place, the car body to another place. Now, to which one would you call the car? None of them. So that's all there is, just a combination of all this, but there's no true self. All there is the constant change. So it's to understand this, to really understand this, we have to. That's why we again encouraging people to do vipassana. Without doing vipassana, it is impossible to understand this. So we need to practice meditation. Yeah.
So I have been to 2 Vipassana sessions that are in a really 10-day courses, right? And while you're there, you don't speak, right? You just hold silence, right? And You don't look at people directly or anything. So you're very into that self that isn't there. But you're doing meditation every day.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a very artificial environment. We don't have that anywhere,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Silence. So after doing each 10-day session, I'd come out and feel great. I'm like, wow, I'm enlightened. I feel really wonderful, right? And then as soon as you get injected back into your world, where you must have sort of articulated goals, and you're judged by your progress, isn't there attachment to all that? Like, how do you go through your regular life and keep that sense of peace, but still live in the real world? Right?
So that's why first you need to free yourself.
Well, I felt free when I was there, but it's like I felt wonderful. But I remember stopping at the first Tim Hortons on the way back, thinking, "Wow, everything's crashing back." So to maintain that, I understand that you must have a practice.
Yeah.
You know, you must practice meditation, and when I
It has to
good
be.
goals, I do, but
Yeah, it has to be. You don't stop it there. Now the thing is, of course, you do 10 days.
yes,
You have observed so many things. You gain a lot of insights. Now, as a practitioner, now see whether you can apply that into the real life situations when you come back to the
exactly.
real life.
So if I could just go back to the question, how do you maintain a sense of goals, which we are very, in our society, we should be goal-oriented, and we should have certain success markers and certain things, materialistic markers are success, but also certain developments.
Yeah.
So how do you keep those goals in mind, but not be attached to them, or not have any attachments?
Well, that's why. Now I have to give you this advice.
Okay.
I think this is why Buddha created a separate community.
For women?
Community.
Oh.
Do you know what is that community?
No.
Sangha, monastic community.
Oh.
A community of renouncers. You renounce the world.
And yet those that renounced, one thing I find interesting is that those that renounced were still dependent on others to feed them and clothe them, right? Because you weren't supposed to, you had to beg for your food, and you had to, so you're depending on the charity of others who have to have goals and jobs and things to be able to share.
Yeah. So it's also like, that's why this Sangha is called the fourfold community. So now, of course, even the monastic community, although they have to do the begging for food, they don't have to beg for a lot of food. Maybe, whoever gives something, you accept that. And in fact, they are happy with that. And they are not craving for more. Let's say for us, I'm not saying that I'm an enlightened monk. You know the robe I am using now? You know how many years I have been using this robe?
No.
Well, this is still in good condition. More than 20 years. So this is about the mind. You prepare your mind to a certain extent. That is okay. Of course, I understand. I also got that impression. I don't know whether I told this. I told this story, my own experience during my university days. So one day, I was having some coffee in the cafeteria with some students. So one female student asked me a question. Bhante, every day we see you in the same costume, same color, same Everything's same. Don't you have any other clothes, any other outfits, any other colors? Actually, when that student asked me this, it kind of annoyed me. Annoyed me in the sense that, oh my goodness, what am I doing here? That's true. Look at these people. They are really enjoying the life. But I did not say anything. I said, no, I don't know, I have no clue, I don't have an answer to this question. I went back to the temple. I threw my bags and jumped onto my bed, lie down. And then I was thinking about this. I was thinking, seriously thinking about this question. And then I realized one commitment that I made when I was getting the novice ordination. I told the teacher to ordain me with this statement, this vision. What's the vision and mission? To end all sufferings, to realize Nibbana or Nirvana. Please take this robe and ordain me. And then I realized, wow, I am practicing this lifestyle with this goal in mind, that is to end all suffering. Now, to end suffering, you have to practice letting go of the attachments. You have to practice this simplicity, simple lifestyle. And my life, this one, the robe I'm using, is, I'm contented with what I have. This is the practice of detachment and practice of this simple life. And when I reflected on this, I kind of got energized. I was happy. I was smiling, laughing to myself. And I was looking forward to going back to the campus following day to tell that female student. And then when I went to the campus, then after the lecture, we met again for the coffee. And then I told her, look, you asked me a question yesterday. I did not have the clear answer to it, but today I have a clear answer to that question. I said, what is that? So I explained all this. I said, now you're putting all these colorful outfits every day. You're doing all this, but do you have such a goal? They said no. So, but I said, okay, you're lay people. You're social beings. You need to practice this. But we are the renouncers. We have let go. We are practicing letting go of all this. So now, it's a level of understanding that you have to have. I also have a lot of privileges. Like I told people many times, I had the privilege of becoming the full-time professor at U of T. I was offered the full-time job. I was almost there to accept the job, but in the last minute, before signing the contract, I reflected on my life. Then I realized, if I sign this paper, I will be confined in this building, in this academic world. But I have this goal. I made this commitment at the age of 10. So I need to, keep practicing, until I accomplish my goal. So then I said no to that job. So sometimes, of course, for me it's easy because I'm a layperson. I have no commitments to look after the family, to feed the children or to do this or that. But then it is also a kind of level of understanding and the lifestyle that you choose to live. So in your life, of course, for 10 days, you were cut off from the real world. You got the real sense of feeling of relief. You were like you felt like you found freedom. But after 10 days, on the way back to your house, when you saw the Tim Horton, you go like, wow, I'm back to real life. I want this, I want that. No?
Actually, I wanted to keep that feeling, but I'm just saying, real life comes in on you really fast.
Yeah. So that's why you need to always keep in mind, and you have to reflect on your experience, your practice, and then see whether you can sustain that peace in the real life, no matter what happens. Like when somebody does something to you, yells at you, or does something negative, bad, see there, you can see whether you can really sustain your peace there. If you can be patient, that shows that Dhamma is there with you in day-to-day life.
If I can just intervene, we have about 15 minutes left, so if you could go through this. And also, I also want to mention that, Bhante Sarnapala and monks like him do have their existence, their support through donations of the community, because he didn't charge me to come up here. He came out of his own free will to serve the community. And so there is, on the table back there, there's a red sort of jar-ish thing. So if you feel motivated to do so, you're welcome to leave a donation there when you leave, as I noticed some people have started leaving. And those are to support, for example, his temple, the activities such as this, because they also need to eat. Someone's got a mortgage to pay on their behalf, and so on and so forth. So that will be helpful for him and monks at his temple to be able to pursue these activities. And
yeah, so
tell us about the cessation of suffering.
Then the cessation of suffering is to, now I said that it is the emotional mind that makes you think that that exists. So now what you do is, through the practice of meditation, you go for the level of mental purities, right? When you go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in this practice, then you will see how things happen, okay? How things, as people say, tend to think things exist. And it's the seeing is called the wisdom, panya. Panya is the opposite of avidya. Avidya is ignorance, right? And seeing is panya, is called wisdom. With this wisdom, what this wisdom does is, it makes you see things as they really are. Like it makes you see that things are happening due to the necessary right causes and conditions. Right? So now, when you see this, you realize that I identified these objects. When the light falls onto the object, I see this person, that person, and then I assume, I mentally construct this is a man, this is a woman, and then when you see that mental construction, then if you remove that mental construction, then you can remove the mind and body, known as the nama rupa, name and the form. And then when you remove that name and the body, then you can remove these 6 spheres of sense. When you remove that cause and condition, then you can remove the contact. When you remove contact, you can remove feeling. When you remove the feeling, then you can remove craving. When you remove craving, you can remove grasping. When you remove grasping, then you can remove the birth of the existence. When you remove that birth, the existence, then you can remove the aging, sickness, death, and all these sufferings and pains, lamentation, grief, and all this. So basically, the fundamental point here is the seeing, the wisdom. You need wisdom to see this. And that wisdom is a thinking mind, not the emotional mind. When you let the thinking mind, rational mind become active, powerful, then the rest of the things will make you see as they really are. This is what you have to understand.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but when it says, for example, the cessation of rebirth, well, I know obviously in the Buddhist context it does mean taking a new body, for example, rebirth in that sense, but when you consider that, for example, someone like the Buddha or some person could be in modern times, you or me, that they uproot ignorance within their consciousness such that they've transcended suffering in this life, then they're still inhabiting this body. So you could say that in the birth of the next moment, or the consciousness that takes birth in the next moment is not an ignorant consciousness, therefore it's a free consciousness, happy consciousness. So I think it's like, I don't know, maybe that's a wrong application.
No,
there's both the
that's
sense of rebirth into a new body and rebirth into the next moment, moment by moment by moment.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's a different story. Okay? Now this dependent origination, not only traditional people see, this is the explanation of the whole cycle of life, how things happen, right? Keep going people in the cycle of life. Although that's the popular understanding of the dependent origination, when you examine this explanation given by the Buddha, it is the explanation of how suffering, human suffering, comes into being.
Moment by moment.
Moment by moment. And then it is also the explanation how you can stop this suffering. How suffering begins, and then how suffering can be brought into an end.
Through wisdom.
Through wisdom.
Proper seeing.
Yeah. So, the beginning of suffering, original suffering is ignorance. The end of suffering is
Wisdom.
wisdom, is based on wisdom. So this is the, I would say
The short form.
Short form of this.
Maybe we have a question and then maybe a 10-minute meditation because we'll be at 4. And then people who want to ask more questions could stay afterwards.
Okay, sure.
I think about the purpose of reincarnation, that is a working on ourselves, and that doesn't mean we will be successful in this life, but I guess that's how I think of it as an important part of what we live, and the same with anger, and the same with joy, and this, that I guess I am struggling, I have to admit, with that I don't exist, and I in some form, not my body, or that will all go. It's not permanent, but there is an I that will develop and will transcend, I guess, in a way, to something else that
Yeah.
becomes more perfect in some way.
Yeah. Well, that is a form of what we call the Bodhisattva ideal. Bodhisattva means the prospective Buddha. What prospective Buddha does is seeing others suffering, and he sacrifices his own privileges. It says first to liberate himself. It is based on compassion, karuna, compassion. But you do this first, liberating yourself from the suffering. It's called having become liberated. First, liberating myself, I will liberate others. Having crossed the river of suffering, I will help others to cross the river of suffering. Having become enlightened, I will help others become enlightened. Right? So it is like the modern concept adopted by the aeroplane industry, like before taking off the plane, how the the flight attendants say, no, before putting the oxygen mask to someone else, put that on first to yourself, right? So of course we need compassion, like. But again, we are doing this to alleviate suffering, to free ourselves from suffering. So it's a good thing that you have this compassion and you're developing compassion. In fact, see the suffering that you could develop more compassion. That's what led Buddha to renounce the world, the privileged life. He saw the suffering of the world, of the society, and he said, now I need to find an exit from this suffering. I need to find a way. That's why he renounced the world, became an ascetic and practiced meditation. And then he found the way. After that, he came back to the society. Yeah? So it's like, of course, see whether you can, if someone is in pain, see whether you can embrace that pain without letting yourself being affected by that person's pain. If you're getting affected by that person's pain, that means you have not taken care of yourself. Right? So you need to do this more. It's also called the parami, perfection. You need to be perfecting. That means keep practicing. It's like how we do our daily practice. Before doing everything, we do our own practice. We wake up and we do chanting, meditation, and then we deal with the day's things. Whoever comes will listen to their story, and then wish happiness to them. So it's everyday practice. So when you keep doing this, one day you're going to be free, and your freedom will have an impact on others too. It's like when Buddha came back to the society as a free person, his freedom has had a big impact on the society. That's why even today we are talking about that. Right? So we need to keep doing this. Yeah.
So there's an element of wanting to, I guess in an ideal situation, our conscious evolution kind of allows us the ability to transcend the birth-death cycle, correct?
Yeah.
Is there, outside of that, is there an element, or maybe within that process, is there an element of our emotions that stay contained in this version of reality that we exist in day to day, in this world, this earth? And is there a correlation with whatever that could look like with like the paranormal? Sorry, that was a really crazy question.
I think
I'm trying to draw a line between the emotion, the emotional abundance that one receives and projects over the course of a lifetime, and what we think we're starting to try and understand about paranormal activity, or the idea of so much energy being contained in one space for so long from one entity that even after that entity is gone from this earth, there's still some amount of energy there. I don't know if this is something that's even in the realm of what we're discussing today, but it's a curiosity point for me.
Oh, I think it's a very important question. There is positive energy, right? And today, some people call it the universal energy. So that universal, the positive energy is maybe love, compassion, right? Maybe all the positive emotions. And at the same time, they also have the opposite, the negative ones. And this is why these are called the negative mind and the positive mind. So that's why they are identified by the neuroscientists as the Velcro brain or the Teflon brain. And these two forces exist. Exist in the sense, like these are there, but then it depends on what people are cultivating. What energy level they're siding with. Now let's say these days we feel so much agony just by listening to news, right? The warship has been sent to the Korean Peninsula. Anytime anything could happen. Right? So now why? Again, there are people who are supporting one notion, yeah, they must be punished. The other one are saying, no, they should not be punished. Right? So now this is the world as it is. So as long as this cycle of life continues to exist, this will be the reality. So that's why there is no end to this, because this is what's happening. This is the human beings who are doing this, because basically this is the conflict between the two egos. Now, you have to have wisdom not to be part of this conflicting wisdom. Then you need to allow your Teflon brain, Teflon mind to grow. And when this thinking, Teflon mind becomes powerful, that day you see let's say, why are we still talking about Buddha? Why are we still talking about Jesus Christ? Whatever the positive energy, positive things they share, although they are, let's say, Buddha, they're not God. We, in the 21st century, we are still seeing the validity of that teaching. So that energy is still here. And we are trying to bring that energy into our heart and try to cultivate it so that we also could become enlightened like the Buddha. So now that's why we are doing this practice.